So I've just come into the kitchen for a quick cup of tea break because there's an article on this morning that upset me slightly. It's about becoming a parent in lockdown. I didn't become a parent in lockdown because my oldest is 19 and then I have a 9-year-old, 8-year-old, 7-year-old, 3-year-old. I had my number 6 I had in August. So I found out that I was pregnant in the January, which is also when a lot of my problems were happening. I'd had a full body MRI in January and found out, and it was a private MRI because I couldn't get one on the NHS. And I found out in that scan that I was pregnant. And then we locked down in the April. So every single one of my blood tests and scans I had to go to alone. And that really was actually quite hurtful. And I remember thinking all the way through, well, at least I'm not someone doing this for the first time. But what you have to remember in my case is that I use a wheelchair. So every single one of those appointments, I had to ask someone at the foyer to help me. Hold on. It's there, baby, on the shelf. On the shelf. Sorry, one of my kids making their own breakfast. Won't that be fun? Every single appointment I had to ask someone at the foyer to escort me up because I was in a wheelchair and needed help to get through the lobbies and the things. And then for a scan, I needed help to be lifted onto and off of scan beds and to get dressed. And no staff ever wanted to help me because COVID meant that they couldn't touch me or help me get dressed. So I left a lot of times in pain and had to take extra pain medication because of the damage that would happen to me at those appointments. A lot of things that went wrong with me, from being told that I had Graves' disease and that my antibodies were starting to attack the baby, to the baby's position being incorrect, to having a large baby, to all of those things I had to go through on my own. And then I'd have to get a complete stranger to help me back to the car park. And then I would burst into tears and tell my partner what had got on. I had a consultant-led pregnancy, so I had to get them to give me copies of all of my notes so that I didn't miss anything if I was upset or crying on the day. And then I'd have to share that with my partner. I was induced. They refused to let my partner come in with me when I was induced. And I told them several times that I have extremely fast labours, my last one being 3 minutes total. So they wouldn't listen to me about that information and insisted that I come in on my own and they would contact him when I went into active labour. So I told him to wait in the car park because I knew it would be quick. Because I was in a wheelchair and they had ignored all of those things, they actually booked me in, and it took them 3 days of me being in hospital and having all my vitals checked and getting my blood pressure right before they would start the induction, as it turned out. And then they went with a method that I had asked them specifically not to do because I knew from a previous pregnancy, my first, that the drips that they use are really bad with my body. I just eject a baby as soon as I go on them. So when they finally wheeled me through, because I was in a wheelchair, and they acted a lot of the time like that was a problem for them. Someone had to carry my bag, someone had to help me get changed, someone had to help me go to the toilet, and I was an inconvenience to the hospital at that time. I've kept a video diary of that maybe I'll put together and upload at some point. And they finally wheeled me through to be induced. I agreed to have my waters burst without my husband present, only if, because he was in the car park, he could come up immediately afterwards, which they allowed because I did go into labour immediately upon popping my waters. But after an hour, they refused to let me continue to go into labour because they were trying to knock women in and out of the department as quickly as possible. It was not about my safety or my experience. It was about getting me in and out as quickly as possible. So they told me that they would put me on the drip by force if necessary because I didn't want it. So they put me on the drip. And I said, right, I'm in labour now. And they said to me, you're not reacting like someone would if they were in labour. And I said, as someone with degenerative conditions and autoimmune diseases that deals with pain every day, my level of pain is not your level of pain. So when I tell you that I do not get upset in labour, I am telling you that I do not get upset in labour. And right now, I am in labour. But as clear as I'm speaking now, that's how I am when I'm in labour. So the nurse eventually put me on a chair. She said, get yourself comfortable, because she didn't understand how I needed to labour. And I put it in my notes and explained to her that I needed to be sat up at all times because my spine is damaged. So she put me in the chair, and my husband actually figured out how to separate my legs and put it in stilts. And then she kept going on and on and on at me about aftercare and whether I would be breastfeeding. And I told her I wouldn't be breastfeeding. I did breastfeed all of my other children, but because of the amount of medications I'm on, I didn't want to put that into the baby. So that was pregabalin, amitriptyline, all of those things. I didn't want it in the baby, so I'm bottle feeding. And she lost her temper with me again. She said, I'm going to give you a few minutes, and stormed out of the room. And I said to Chris, my partner, the baby's coming. And he said, it's fine, we can do this without them. So we did. So I've got a video of this as well. She told me I wasn't allowed to photograph or video, so we did it covertly because I wanted a record of it, my last baby. And she rushes into the room screaming, stop, 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 even after I had told her that I had quick deliveries and that the baby was coming. And then she does the worst thing you could possibly do to me, and she flattens the bed. It's completely flat, which immediately damages my spine and pops my hip, and I haven't been able to walk properly since that day. So I deliver the baby instantly. You can hear on the video the nurse's panic. She was panicked at how quickly things went. I do go from 3 centimetres to 10 centimetres in about 1 minute flat, tops. It hurts a lot, but I am just not a screamer. If you hear me scream, then something is very, very wrong, because my 10 is another person's, like, it just doesn't happen. On a pain scale of 1 to 10, I live at 6 or 7, and that's on drugs. And if I don't take drugs, I'd be at an 8 or 9. What happens with torture patients is that over time you stop screaming and you stop crying and you stop telling people that you're in pain, because no one cares and no one wants to hear it. You don't want to hear it. I get angry at myself for when I say, oh, I hurt, oh, this hurts, or mummy needs to sit down, or mummy needs a minute. Could you help me for a minute, because I'm really hurting. It upsets me as much as it upsets everyone else. And as the years go by, you just stop telling people that inside your head you are screaming. But what that means is that doctors don't understand when something's wrong. I've currently got ruptures in my Achilles and a ball the size of a golf ball on my ankle, and I can't weight bear on it. But the doctor won't see me because on the phone I don't sound like I'm in pain, and I should sound like I'm in pain if it's a serious injury. And there's still no face-to-face consultations at my doctor's clinic. So after the baby was born, anyway, going back to that, they cleaned her up and they told my husband that he had to leave immediately. And I said, but I'm in a wheelchair and I cannot clean myself up. And I had started to hemorrhage. So there was a lot of blood everywhere. And they said, well, it's not our problem. We need to get you back to the ward. So we kicked off at that point, and they told him that he had 5 minutes to give me a wash and get me dressed, and then he had to leave. And he did, and they left. And I was wheeled back to a private room because of my wheelchair and equipment was quite large. And then that evening I had a hemorrhage. They didn't phone him at any point to tell him what was going on. And they put me on all the drips, saline drips and antibiotic drips and blood drips. And no one helped me with the baby. No one helped me with a wash. No one assisted me with toileting. So I just gave up and put on my incontinence underwear and just accepted that I could not wash or go to the bathroom the entire time I was in the hospital, which was hugely embarrassing. So on the 4th day of that, I insisted that they discharge me. My baby was born with a clicky hip, so I had to go back to have her x-rayed on about day 8. But obviously I couldn't do that, so I sent the husband in with her on that day. Other than that visit, she has not been seen by any medical people. She hasn't had a single weigh-in. She's had vaccinations, but no checkups. They didn't check her hips, her skin tags, her birthmarks. I've not had any doctor's appointments, midwife appointments. I've not seen a health visitor or spoken to a health visitor. I don't even have a health visitor's phone number or a midwife's phone number. Absolutely nothing. She is now 8 months old and has had zero contact with a medical professional. I have had zero contact postnatally. So no one has asked if my mental health is okay, given that I have had mental health problems in the past and postnatal problems in the past, and did actually really lose my shit with my first child. No one's checked that everything's okay here. Not one person. Beyond that, everything on the TV keeps saying, but the NHS is open, the NHS is open. Call us if you need help. Well, I need a smear test, and I would like a coil fitted so that I don't have any more children. But my GP practice doesn't do those things. The sexual health clinic is closed and no one's willing to do that. So I may well end up with a baby number 7. Who knows? I don't want a baby number 7, but I can't get anywhere to get any help with that. And I am severely allergic to the contraceptive pill. My husband is quite happy to have a vasectomy, but his doctors are also closed for all non-essential anythings. I got really hopeful about speaking to the pain clinic a few months back and finally getting put on the right medications to manage my pain levels. And that was all phone appointments, which has been great. The pain clinic has been really great with me, but I have one appointment every 6 to 8 months, and that's all by the phone. When I spoke to them a few months back, I said to them, oh, and my MRI showed that I've got a torn hip and I'm really struggling with the pain. And she said, well, why haven't you seen anyone about a torn hip, for God's sake? And I said, well, my GP said that that's not something that the NHS deals with. So she said, well, I'll refer you then to an orthopaedic surgeon, which she did. And I got an appointment through the post. And it's with the Spire Clinic acting on behalf of the NHS. It was not in person. So I phoned them and said, can I send you my MRI and reports so that I don't have to explain it all on the phone? So they said yes. So I sent all that to them. And on the phone, he said to me that he can do the steroid injections that I've asked for under ultrasound, which I've had before. My doctor usually does them 6 monthly, but he's refusing to do them. So I've lost the ability to walk just because my doctor is not doing any face-to-face appointments or minor clinics. The pain clinic guy said that that would be immediate, but it's been 5 weeks and I haven't had a report or a letter or any follow-up appointments at all. He said that I could have or needed to have an arthroscopy, but there's no appointment for that. And he doesn't do them at the Spire. He said that would need to be referred on to someone else. And because the referral that he got was only for my left hip, which is torn, he cannot give me the injections into my right hip for the arthritis. So I will still be in pain. He also can't look at the ruptured plantar or the Achilles that I've ruptured because it's not on the referral, and I can't get in to see a GP because I'm not in enough pain. I did a heart Holter test in November because one of the consultants when I was pregnant said that my heartbeat wasn't right, and that's why I'm breathless and hot and flushed. And I always thought that it was because I have a goiter and a thyroid problem, but he said it's not. It's something to do with my heart. But they couldn't do the test while I was pregnant because the queue was so long and because the NHS is closed. So by the time they finally opened that department, I was no longer pregnant, and I thought, well, I might as well do the test. They send it through the post, so I did it. And that was in November, and in February I thought I'd never heard back from that, so I contacted the hospital for a copy of the report, which they've sent to me. But the report does confirm that there are problems with my heart. But no one's looked at it because I'm no longer under the consultant at the hospital, because that was just for my pregnancy. So what do? I've got a copy of a report that says there's something wrong with me. Who do I give that to? So I'm going to photocopy it and send it to my GP, who's not open, and see if he does anything at all with that. I was supposed to be referred to the endocrinologist for my thyroid. I have a goiter, and 3 years ago they found a load of cysts and nodules in there. It's grown so much that I have quite a lot of trouble sometimes breathing and with my voice, and I struggle to swallow anything big. But while I was pregnant, I saw an endocrinologist at the hospital. So they've cancelled the referral because I saw an endocrinologist while I was pregnant, even though that was during pregnancy. So that's not my consultant, and they haven't dealt with my problem or done anything about my thyroid. My TSH levels are normal. It's only my antibodies that are sky high. So why should we care about the fact that there's a great big tumour in my throat? You know, just live with that. It's exhausting because the NHS is absolutely, most definitely not open for business. And I feel absolutely sorry for any woman that has had a baby in COVID or is pregnant in COVID, because it is and has been unpleasant, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I wasn't allowed anyone in with me for visits. I wasn't allowed in with me during labour. I wasn't allowed anyone in with me postnatally. He wasn't even allowed to come into the hospital to collect me. He had to meet me outside. So I had to have 3 staff members assist me and my wheelchair and my belongings and my baby out of the hospital into a car park. There was no one that saw me afterwards. Nothing. The NHS is not open for business. And I think that anyone that is coping with illness or children during it needs a fucking medal, because you're stars.